Today, let's talk about projectors and friendships. And this came up in a recent coaching session with a client who was talking about how uncomfortable it felt as she was growing. And she felt like maybe one of her friendships wasn't very aligned and like what to do about that. So I thought it was high time that I did a longer video about projectors, making friends, breaking up friendships, how to do it, all of those good things. So basically in this live, I'm going to cover three main points. The biggest issue we face in making friends as projectors. The second is the biggest challenge that we face as we become more and more aligned with our truth as projectors in all our various forms. And then number three is how and when to let go of friends. So number one, the biggest issue. And in case we haven't met, I'm Carolyn. I am a human design coach and tapping practitioner, and I have been working with human design and tapping for more than 10 years. And I can tell you that if you looked at my childhood, you would have seen a litany of experiences where I had no clue how to make friends. And that ties really beautifully into point number one. The biggest issue that we face as projectors is that we don't value ourselves enough to wait for invitations. Now, sometimes some projectors do okay at this, but if your childhood didn't support you in waiting, in valuing yourself, in standing in the knowing that you are awesome and people would want to hang out with you, which is, to be fair, like the vast majority of projectors have some amount of this, why would anyone want to be friends with me thing? Or why would anybody want to be friends with the weird, wild creature in me that I want to express? It even came up in a call that I did just this morning of like how do I create friendships with people where I feel really nourished? Yeah. So, of course, the way to move through that obstacle is to improve how much you value yourself, how much you recognize and appreciate yourself, because then the outside world is going to reflect that. Your relationships are going to reflect what you hold internally. So that's the biggest issue, is waiting for invitations. Because here's what happens. Let's dive into this a little bit. When we respond to opportunities to like hang out with a group of people, or we initiate friendships with people who we think would be cool to be friends with, they never truly nourish us, and they never truly, like, the relationships don't nourish us. The relationships are more likely to feel draining. They're more likely to feel unbalanced, which is what this client was talking about the other week, that she feels like she's always helping the other person and she doesn't feel like, it leaves her feeling drained instead of feeling like there's an energy balance, there's an energy exchange. And when all of these things that I'm talking about are all things I've done. I've done all of it backwards. And that's why I can tell you that, like when I have responded to opportunities to hang out with people, or responded to something in a group situation, and there's lots of videos on this. So any of the keywords that you hear me talk about on the channel, the easiest thing to do, if I can link the channel directly here, I'll do that. But if you go to the home channel and you look in the search bar for responding or invitations or initiating, you're going to be able to find more videos where I talk about the nuances of this some more. But if we're doing this backwards, if we're responding or initiating instead of waiting for true invitations as projectors, the relationships that we have, all relationships, but if we zero in on friendships, they're never going to be as nourishing, satisfying, joyful as they could be. We're not going to be hanging out with people who really see us, who really hear us, who really value us. Those opportunities for those sorts of successful friendships only come when you wait for the invitation. And waiting for the invitation requires you knowing, I am valuable, I am wonderful, I am lovable, I would make a cool friend. Right? And if you would struggle to say any of those things to yourself, then I highly recommend doing some deconditioning work. Now, let's go on to point number two, and I'm going to check the way I wrote this because I liked it. The challenge that we experience as we become more aligned. Okay, so we have this wonderful story that we spin in the human design world of how wonderful it is to come into alignment with your human design. And it is. It's true. But it's only half true. Because what happens is as you shift the conditioning and as you come into greater and greater alignment with who you are, and you're more truthful and more honest and more genuine and more authentic, to use those overused terms, then the people who liked the old version of you are going to be cranky about that. The people who were just loved having your company and loved having you listen to them and loved like heaping all their crap on you, and the ones that were attached to a conditioned version of you aren't going to be so super stoked about you being super aligned. Now, in the big picture, it's great. And in the long term for you, it is absolutely 100% in your best interest to become aligned with what your human design chart shows you. There is no way 10 plus years later, I would still be banging on about this if I didn't think it was like the best thing that you could be doing in your life is becoming more aligned with the truth of who you are. But that's not to say it's not uncomfortable, which is why you hear me talk so much on this channel about things like tapping and emotional regulation, because it is uncomfortable to realize that as you become more aligned with the truth of who you are, that you outgrow, that you are no longer aligned with or similar enough to the people that you have been friends with for a year or 10 years or 30 years. It's very uncomfortable. And that's why it's so important to be able to have a way to be able to meet yourself and go, wow, I feel sad. I feel not seen by the friends that I have. I feel however you're feeling, and be able to meet the parts of you and give that part of you a giant hug and go, oh man, this is hard. This is harder than I thought it would be. I thought it would just be this shiny process of becoming aligned with the truth of who I am, and that would just magically solve everything. Well, it magically solves a lot of things, but it does require having a look at the friendships that you've had and realizing, man, I don't feel like I fit this relationship anymore. Or this relationship used to feel good, but now I don't want to just be someone's company. I don't want to be someone's coach if they're supposed to be my friend. I want equal balance, exchange of energies. I want to feel really nourished and happy that I spent time with this person. So I think it's really important that we talk about that, because there will come a point where you'll realize that you may need to shed people along the way, and it's uncomfortable for them, it's uncomfortable for you. And the more kindness and grace you can offer yourself and them in that process, the easier that letting go, that pruning will be. So I'm going to go on to point number 3, but something I often, and I'm glad that you're just looking in the chat here, you're finding it wonderful, so that's great. Thank you very much. Thanks for letting me know in the chat that you're here. So one of the things that I have not done so well in these lives is remind you that you can share these videos. So if so far you're finding this video really helpful and you have other projectors in your community, please do go ahead and share it with them. And if you don't know any other projectors, or you're not sure who you would share it with, but you're finding it really valuable, please hit the like button, because that will help the channel to grow, and it helps give me some more feedback that this is a good use of my time to create content for you like this. So there are always 2 easy things you can do with any of my videos. Is if you've got somebody who you think it will be useful to them, don't spam everybody, but just if it would be useful to them, please share any of the videos on this channel, and you can always give it a like. My default now is to hit like on any of the videos I ever watch on YouTube that I found really helpful, as a way to just make sure I'm saying thank you to the creator. So point number 3, how and when to let go of friendships. We have this standard idea of how to end work relationships. There are some sort of rules in general about how this could be done in an appropriate manner. There's a protocol, a process. Sure, it differs from, depending on whether it's a small team or a large corporate organization, and it changes from in different countries. But generally speaking, there is a way to quit or resign from a job, so your professional relationships. There is a way to end, like break up with or separate from a partner. But we don't have that with friends. We don't have a way to, like a culturally accepted, at least in all of the cultures that I've had exposure to, a culturally accepted way to go, you know what? I'm grateful for the friendship that we've had, but I'm done. And I can tell you that I have been on the receiving end of good, bad, and ugly breakups with friends. I have been the person to do the breakup, sometimes in like not great ways, as I have learnt how to do this in messy ways that have not been graceful, have not been as thoughtful as I could have been about the other person's feelings. And I have also learned through those experiences about how to be more gentle with people. So let's talk about when to do it, and then let's talk about how. So that you know that it's time to consider ending a friendship, and only you will know. So you can't just let me on the internet tell you how to run your life. But a time to consider ending a friendship is when you realize that over a period of time of spending time with this person, you consistently come away from the interactions feeling drained, feeling not seen, feeling not heard, that they're stoked to have your company, but you're not really enjoying their company. They're heaping all their crap on you, and you're doing a great job of listening, but then they never ask you about you. They never give you a chance to talk through the things that are challenging for you. It feels very one-sided, and basically it leaves you feeling not good. That's a good way to simplify it. When your friendships are feeling not good, that is a good time to consider, should I end this friendship or not? Now, I want to go into a little bit of nuance here with a couple of examples. So I had a friend that I consciously chose to step away from that friendship and end that friendship because I noticed that I just really was not enjoying the interactions. And that was true. I didn't do it after one time. I mean, I'm an emotional authority, so I take some time. Do check in with your emotional authority around these things. You know, if your spleen says you're done and you're a splenic being, or your ego says I'm not being valued here, like honor that. But if you have a different inner authority that needs time or like process to figure it out, please honor that. And the longer that you've been friends with someone, the more impact it might have on your life. If there's somebody who lives really close to you, that is going to have more impact on your life than if there's somebody who you have a long distance friendship with, for example. But if you have over a period of time noticed that your interactions leave you feeling not good, then that is a good time to consider ending that friendship. Now, I can think of friends, as I was mentioning, I can think of somebody who I was having interactions with, and the more I got to know her, the more I realized, look, she's a really great therapist, but I'm not enjoying and that's how I found her initially, through her work. Like, I was professionally loving on her work. I thought it was great what she was creating online. But as my friend, I was realizing I wasn't enjoying that relationship. So, you know, I would still happily send her clients. If somebody came to me and they presented as somebody who would really benefit from her work, I would happily send them to her, right? So this is not about not caring about the person anymore. It's not about thinking, oh, this is a good person, therefore I should be friends. It's just, does this friendship make me feel good? And in that case, the answer was no. And so I ended that friendship. Now, I can think of 3 friends who I have been friends with for many years who have each independently become chronically ill. And their capacity for meaningful interactions with me and spending time with me, talking to me, asking me about how I'm doing, in all of those cases has diminished significantly. Now, in this case, I know that they all still love me. They all still value me. They have limited capacity to hang out with me or check in on me. But I'm still seeing indications from them that they want to be friends with me. They just have this teeny tiny capacity, right? So if you have friends in a similar situation to that, now it might not be because of a chronic illness. It might just be that they just moved to the other side of the world, or they just had their second child, or they just, they're looking after an aging parent who's going downhill, and they just have like no time and no brain space to do anything but take care of themselves. Now, in that case, all I do is I gently step back from the relationship a little bit. I make sure I get my needs met with other friends in other ways, but I continue that, keep those lines of communication open in a way that still feels nourishing for me. And because they can only show up a little bit, I also only show up a little bit, because I've done it before where I've been the overgiver in these situations where the other person had a lot less capacity. And then I end up feeling resentful because there is completely out of balance, right? So I highly recommend that if you're in a situation where you have a friend whose capacity has significantly dropped, but you still love them, and you still feel like you would love to be friends with them, and you still feel like they show you indications that they want to be friends with you, then just be mindful of like meeting them in a new way that's balanced for their current capacity. And you can leave space for the fact that down the track their capacity might increase, and be sure to continue to get your social needs met somewhere else. Okay, so I think that's the when question. Now, how do you do it? All of this is assuming that the people that you are friends with, that none of them are toxic, nasty, mean, abusive, unsafe people to be with. If you discover in the process of deconditioning and becoming more aligned with your design that you have been in unsafe relationships, great, now you know. And when you are in unsafe relationships, the only way to end those relationships probably is to be really defensive about it, to have very strong boundaries. So in situations, I haven't had it with friends, but I have had it with romantic partners, and I've done, at least one video on this channel about my process with romantic partners. I had to leave and disappear and not tell him anything and cut off communication, because he wasn't a safe person to have a reasonable conversation with. You know that saying, you can't reason with unreasonable people. So when people are physically, mentally, emotionally unsafe, you are going to have to end that relationship in a more what's the word that I want to use? Like in a way that is honoring of your safety and is not going to look as nice as you could with somebody who has a high degree of emotional intelligence. So, when I ended the friendship with the therapist, I was able to talk about, this is what I'm doing, this is how I'm feeling, and I wish you all the best. And she was shocked and she was hurt because she wasn't seeing it that way. But she also was able to receive it with like, wow, that sucks. And I'm sorry that we're at that place. And now I'm going to go and take care of myself. And I love you so much. And I wish that this wasn't the end, but goodbye. Right? Can you see how they are like polar opposites? Right? What's going to happen probably is that for many of you, there will be this spot in the middle where there's basically one of two things that are probably going to need to happen. Either you, and this is the gentlest version, is to gently step back from the relationship, stop responding, stop initiating, but just create more space than the person's used to, and see if they just like take the hint and like use the opportunity to get their social needs met in other ways. That is the gentlest way to do it. And for anybody who doesn't have a high degree of emotional intelligence, then that's going to be the least confronting way for them to, quote unquote, lose you as a friend. Sometimes we have to have a direct conversation like I did with that therapist, where we're speaking exactly how we feel, and we have to essentially break up with them as opposed to, gently drift away from them, because they're used to having regular meetups, or they're not very good at taking hints, or there's an expectation, like they're expecting to see you regularly, in which case you have to be far more direct about it. And if you do that, just remember to be as kind and kind to yourself and as kind to them as possible. And to know that it might not be smooth sailing. They might turn you into the bad guy. They might try and manipulate you into coming back into the friendship. So these are all things that you're going to have to navigate. But if you're going to live into the greatest alignment with your design, if you're going to live out the power and the beauty of what you came here to do, then learning how to navigate this process of ideally making the most aligned friendships as possible by following strategy and authority, but also then knowing how to appropriately end or shift relationships as you change is going to be essential. Now, from here, if you know that you would like more support on this, you can have a dig around on the channel. I've also put in the video description links for my coaching page, so you can come and talk about any or all aspects of what I just talked about in this video in a private coaching session. And otherwise, if you want to be kept in the loop about the ways that I'm doing deconditioning work with people, that the first place I always share new opportunities for that is on my email list, which I've also linked in the video description, and I will put as a pinned comment as the first comment here. I hope that was helpful. If you have further questions about any of this that you think I can turn into a video for the rest of YouTube to watch, then feel free to ask it in a comment. And if I haven't talked to a similar topic already, then I'll be happy to consider it.